in order for you to be a success at anything, in order for you to be a success at life, your job, your relationships, your whatever it is you do, you have to be willing and you have to accept the fact that failure is going to come at some point. And if you're not willing to fail, if you're not willing to experience that failure, then you're probably never ever going to realize success either. Right, welcome back to another episode, and today we are going to talk about what it takes to be successful. So before we dive into that, make sure you do all the usual housekeeping stuff. So if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit the like button, make sure you hit subscribe so you can get up to date with any future videos that we drop on this channel, and maybe leave me a wee comment as well so you can let me know you're watching. All of these things help the algorithm to push these videos out to more people, so it would be greatly appreciated if you could do me that wee favour. Thank you very much. And if you're watching this, or not watching it, if you're listening to this as a podcast, then consider giving us a 5-star review, maybe sharing it to your stories so other people can then hop on and have a wee listen as well. So yeah, that'd be greatly appreciated. So today we're going to talk about success and what it takes to be successful. So the last wee while, so I was actually speaking to my wife about this morning. So over the last 5 years, I've been trying to grow a coaching practice, right? So before I started my coaching business, I was a karate instructor. All right, so I taught karate to kids, and before that, I was at university doing sports science. I've had a few different bits and bobs that I've done throughout my life, but those have been the two kind of biggest mainstays of my life over the last few while. So I stopped when I was teaching karate. I was also kind of playing around with some of the health and fitness stuff. I wasn't doing too much. I was doing it more for myself than anything else. And then I seen an opportunity to kind of move online as an online coach. So I started going down that path, and I was doing the two of them at the same time. And then COVID happened, and it kind of destroyed my karate business. It kind of killed it a wee bit overnight, which it was difficult. It was really difficult. It was a challenge. But luckily, I had the online thing up and running. It was, it was working. I had a few clients, and I was making an okay amount of money off it. So I made a decision at that point to not do the karate thing anymore, and just go all in with the online thing. That was a choice I made. And at the time, I think it was the right choice. At the time, I think it was the right choice. It was the right thing to do. But I've been doing it now for the last 5 years, and over the last sort of few weeks, if you've watched a couple of videos on previously, you'll know that I've stopped doing it now. I've fallen out of love with it. I've fallen out of love with the process. Being sat in my room or my office all day long, sitting on social media, making little videos up and doing all that stuff. I don't mind making the content, but then having to have conversations with people and jump on sales calls and do all the different stuff that goes along with running an online business, it's not for me. I'm a very in-person kind of guy. I like to work with people in person. I love teaching classes. I love the energy of being around other people. So being sat here by myself all day long, like talking to my dog, it wasn't for me. I didn't enjoy it. So over the last sort of wee while, I've decided that I'm going to stop doing it. Now, like I said before, people will look at that and think, oh, it's a failure. That's a failed business. And yeah, maybe it is. It is a failed business. I actually ran an online business before this, which failed massively. I think between me and a few of my friends, we spent about 5 or 6 grand on a business to try and sell little loop band things, little exercise bands on Amazon. Hadn't a clue what we were doing. We just went into it completely blind, trying to sell these bands, and we lost all our money. We didn't make anything back. I think we sold maybe 15 sets of bands, if that. And I've still got all of those bands sitting in my garage. So yeah, I've got thousands and thousands of these silly little band things. If anybody's on the hunt for little exercise bands, give me a shout, man. I've got loads of them. But yeah, so that business failed. And then obviously I tried the online thing, the online coaching. And it's been 5 years. I've been going at it for 5 years. It's had its ups, it's had its downs. But ultimately it's not worked out. So people will look at that as a failure, but personally I don't. I see it as an opportunity for growth. I've since gone back into teaching karate, so I'm starting to teach karate now. I've started teaching a jiu-jitsu class. I'm moving back towards things that I feel drawn to, things that I really, really enjoy doing. And I always enjoyed doing those things before. I just wanted to try and take my life in a different direction, and I've seen that as the answer. I've seen that as the thing that was going to give me a different outcome for my life. But I'm a great believer that everything happens for a reason, all right? And if we don't ever try these things, then we'll never ever know, all right? If I hadn't ever tried to do the whole online thing, I would never have known that it wasn't for me. And then it might have been a thing that I've looked at and gone, oh, I wish I'd gave that a go. And when I get to my 60s, my 70s, I look back at my life and go, man, I wish I had gave that a go. What might have happened if I'd given that a go? if I hadn't ever given it a go, I'll never know the answer to that. Whereas now I can look back and go, yeah, well, I did give that a try. It didn't work out. It wasn't really for me. But you know what? At least I gave it a go. And this is where a lot of people really trip up when it comes to making a success at anything. A lot of times they're frightened to try. They're frightened to try because they're worried it's going to fail. And they think they're going to look silly, or they think they're going to look daft. I've invested 5 years of my time into an online business. I've put myself out there on social media. I've made myself look silly in videos. I've done all kinds of crazy things that were way outside my comfort zone, but I've learned a whole pile of new skills in doing that. Nothing's ever... The only time it becomes a failure is if you look at it as a failure and then stop trying, or if you never ever try at all. Now, you've got to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to fail in order to succeed. If you're not willing to fail, if you're not willing to try something and maybe look a bit silly or maybe not have it work out, then you'll never ever learn how to kind of move past that. You'll always kind of like either just not start at all, or you'll fall at the first hurdle, then you'll stop things completely and you'll never ever try anything new. What ends up happening then is you get stuck in a little rut, right? And then most people will look, a really good example of this actually, if we look at like sports stars, right? People will say, "Oh man, he's overnight success, natural talent, all that kind of stuff." And well, yeah, okay, some people will have a natural, I don't want to say a talent because I think that massively disrespects the effort that these guys put into their trade. But there are some people that are maybe more physically gifted in terms of their kind of physical makeup. They've maybe got, if you look at basketball stars, for example, I'm saying that because I've actually got Michael Jordan on my screen right now, which was a bit of the inspiration for this podcast or this episode. He's obviously tall. So I'm never going to make it in the NBA because I'm short. I'm a little short white guy. For me to make it with these guys it's not impossible. Some short guys have made it. They've done well. It's improbable. If you look at the guys that are playing basketballs, they're monsters. They're huge, big guys. So they're more genetically gifted, I suppose, and more genetically capable to play that game because it asks for big, tall guys that can jump through the air and slam balls into that wee net. So they're more genetically capable of playing that game, whereas I'm not. I'm going to have to work super, super hard to be able to do what these guys do. And even then, I might not be able to do it. Like I might not have enough fast twitch fibers to kind of make the big jumps, or my body makeup might not allow me to do it at a level that's good enough to get into the NBA. Not to say it's impossible. It's just going to be a lot harder. But that doesn't mean these guys are naturally gifted. They've put a lot of work in, right? And the quote that's actually on my screen right now, the reason I kind of went on to sports stars is Michael Jordan's famous for saying, I'm going to read this off my screen, "I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and I've missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life, and that's why I succeed." Right? He's been willing to put himself in that position to fail. And through failure, he's put himself back in that position under pressure, and he's learned how to cope with that pressure to get better. And if you know anything about the Michael Jordan story, he was actually cut from one of his first teams. He had to really work his socks off to get back into to contention, to be who he was wanting to be. All right, to be the player that he wanted to be. He had to work really, really hard. And if you listen to him the way he speaks about how he practices, his work ethic was off the scale. That guy practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced and practiced. He didn't ever stop practicing. It wasn't he was a natural talent. He's obviously got genetic gifts in the sense that he's really tall, he's an athletic guy, but he's had to put the work in to get that good at basketball. He had to put the work in every single day to get to that legendary status. And he was also putting himself in a position where he was willing to fail. He was willing to take these shots. If he hadn't put himself up there to be willing to take those shots, like if he had taken one free throw and didn't get it, I'm not doing that again. Would he have been the legendary player that he's known as today? Probably not. He wouldn't have, because he wasn't willing to put himself out there. And it's easy for us to sit back and look like, imagine missing that, man. All you're doing is throwing a wee ball at a hoop. Yeah, but you've got thousands of people watching. There's loads of pressure. There's the pressure of the game. There's a lot going on. And he's been willing to put himself in that position again and again and again and again, knowing that failure is an option. But in order for you to be a success at anything, in order for you to be a success at life, your job, your relationships, your whatever it is you do, you have to be willing and you have to accept the fact that failure is going to come at some point. And if you're not willing to fail, if you're not willing to experience that failure, then you're probably never ever going to realize success either. All right, but for most people, they find some kind of comfort in that, and it allows them to then sit in their comfort zone. Right, they'll sit there and do nothing, but they'll just do what they know every day. Why would I do anything different, man? Because if I try this, I might fail at that. Why would I try anything different? All right, or if they're like, I'm in my 40s now, man, trying to. Like, I was actually speaking to my wife today about maybe starting up doing judo. I've never done judo before. Never in my life. I've done martial arts all my life, but I've never done judo before. It's completely new to me. But if I was to go and start judo, I'd be starting that from scratch. I'd be starting as a white belt. I'm going to go in there and I'm going to get my arse handed to me. I'm going to get beat up. People that are younger than me are going to throw me all over the place. People that are older than me are going to throw me all over the place. Cool, man. I've got to be willing to go through that humiliation, if you want to call it that, and put myself in an uncomfortable position if I want to learn and get better at doing that thing. I spoke about doing public speaking. I said to my wife, I don't want to be a public speaker. I'm comfortable doing this on camera. This is easy for me. I can do this. I could go live on Facebook tomorrow and do a Facebook Live, no problem. I could do the same on Instagram, no problem. Put me in a room with 100 people, stand me on a stage and ask me to talk to them, and I would freeze up. My palms would get sweaty, my armpits would start dripping, my mouth would go dry. I'd be like, I'd find it really difficult to speak because I'm not comfortable in that situation. So going and learning to do public speaking is going to put me in a position that, I'm going to fail, I'm going to get it wrong, I'm going to feel uncomfortable. But if I'm not willing to go through that failure, then I'm never going to succeed in that thing. And most people won't do that because they think, well, why would I put myself through that discomfort when I can quite happily just sit here and do this thing? But then you've got to look at that in the long term. If we look at that in the kind of long term outcome of that, are you going to be happy with knowing that there's things you could have done in your life but you chose not to? Right? Most people look back on their life and they never ever say, oh man, I wish I'd watched more TV. I wish I had spent more time just sat in my arse doing bugger all, playing computer games. Nobody's ever said that. If people are, when they get to their deathbed, man, they look back in their life, they wish they'd had more fun, they wish they'd had more adventure, they wish they'd tried more new things, they wish they'd spent more time with their family, like they wish they had experienced some new experiences, rather than just sitting there in their wee protective bubble going, oh man, I'm safe here, I'm comfortable here. A comfortable life now generally leads to a more difficult life later on down the line. Right, so you've got to be willing to put yourself out there, make things difficult now, so you can then start to lead, an easier life in the future as such. Right? But if you want to succeed, it doesn't matter what you want to succeed in. If you want to get better at playing guitar, if you want to get better at drawing, if you want to get better at playing sports, if you want to have a better job or a better online business or a better business of any way, shape or form, you need to be willing to put yourself outside your comfort zone and be willing to fail. And then within that failure, you need to be willing to learn the lesson from that failure. Right? Don't just be like, oh, do you know what, this is a failure, I'm not going to do that again. Like my online business has failed. I've stopped doing it. I realised it wasn't for me, so it's not worked out. It hasn't worked out, and I'm okay with that. But I've learned a lot of lessons along the way. There's been 5 years, but it's not been 5 years wasted. It's been 5 years of lessons that I've learned. 5 years of lessons that I've learned and brought me to this point, and I can now look towards doing something else. Growing my karate skills back up, my martial arts skills back up. When I first started teaching martial arts, it took me ages to build them. Right? I've already got more than double what I had in my first year and a half, 2 years, than I did the last time round. And I've not, it's only been through doing the things I've learned through running an online business. Like before, I was going into primary schools, and it took a long time to get to that point. Going into primary schools and doing little taster sessions regularly. I've not even done that this time round for my classes now. It's all been through things that I've learned from posting on social media. Right, word of mouth, getting referrals in, all these different things. That's what's helped me to grow my school. So it's been 5 years of learning that have helped me to get to this point, and I can now use those things that I've learned through failing in one business to help me grow another one. And I'm doing it now from a place of experience because I've already built a successful karate school before, and I'm now going to use skills that I've learned through 5 years of growing what was an okay online business. I can combine those two things together, and I'm then going to have a more successful business this time around. So I've failed, but I've also learned, which is going to then help to propel me forward, to make something bigger, to make something better than I had before. All right, but if I hadn't gone through that period, or if I looked at it as that was a failure, I'm going to go and get a job in Tesco's and just stack shelves. All right, if I look at that and then just take I don't want to say it's an easier option, but no disrespect to people that do those jobs, that's not what I mean. But for me to just say I'm not going to do that, I'm going to go and do this because it's easy, then that's a failure because I've not done anything with it. All right, we need to be willing to go through failure, learn the lesson from that failure, and then apply it and keep on moving forward. And when we can do that, when you can take that attitude and that approach to things, that's when you're going to start to realise success. It might not happen tomorrow, it might not happen next week, it might not happen next year, it might take 2 or 3 years. Right, but nothing good ever happens overnight. And when I was teaching weight loss to my weight loss clients, I used to say this to them all the time. Most people fail at weight loss because they jump onto a really extreme diet, or they go to the gym and they hammer themselves on the treadmill, and they do that for a week and nothing changes. They maybe lose a pound, but then they're like, it's too slow. Then by the time the second week comes, they maybe lose 2 pounds, and they're like, oh man, I thought I'd be 20 pounds lighter by now. Yeah, well, do you know what, man? You didn't put 20 pounds on overnight. That didn't happen over the course of a week. That took a few months. Do you know what I mean? So it's not going to come off that quickly either. Good things take time. If we want to build a successful life, a successful business, a successful relationship, lose weight successfully, we have to go through the process. We have to go through the ups and downs. There's going to be times where it's working, there's times where it feels like it's not working. But if we give up every time when it feels like it's not working, then we're just going to keep on going this way. We're never going to experience those ups again. All right, so if you want to be successful in anything, it doesn't matter what it is, you have to go through the process. You have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to put yourself out there and maybe look a bit silly, maybe look a bit daft, have other people looking going, what is that idiot doing, man? That's never going to work. You have to be able to take a bit of criticism. And if you can take that and take it all on board and learn some lessons when failures do come your way, then you're going to start to see some real success in your life. All right. So anyway, that is us for this one. I hope that made some sense. Like I said earlier, if you are watching this one on YouTube, make sure you stick your wee thumb on that like button. Hit subscribe so you can get all these videos when they drop every single week. And leave me a wee comment. All right. Drop me some chat down below and let me know what your biggest failures have been or what your biggest lessons have been from those failures. And if you're listening to this as a podcast, give us a wee 5-star review and maybe share it to your stories so more people can benefit from these episodes. All right, so that is us for this one. Take care and we'll see you on the next episode. Cheers.